Hello, everybody. Welcome to this all-new edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. I'm your host, BJ Kubaroulis, and if you can't tell already, I'm joined by some great guests here on set tonight for the first segment of our show. And it's all about volleyball, so of course we're joined by Monica Moore, FSN volleyball analyst, and from Langley High School, one of the best coaches in the Northern region and one of the best players in the Northern region, and they happen to be mother and daughter, so they could ride together tonight to the studio. It was great. Coach Susan Shifflett of Langley Volleyball and Megan Shifflett, one of the best setters in the Northern region and frankly all of the DC metro area. And don't forget Paul Frummel, Langley High School beat reporter for the Connection newspaper. So we're all here to talk about Langley's hot start in volleyball, and of course we'll talk about their record and ranking in just a moment. And football later in the show in the Northern region. We'll be talking to Coach Gerry Pannoni. But before we do that, let's thank the folks that make this show possible. And of course, we're talking about our teammates, our underwriters, CCI Screen Printing for all your screen printing needs at 703-978-0257. Hey, we're on the website. It's an all-new website, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Go there for interviews, video, and more, all coming on our new overhauled website at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. And you'll be able to see some of the text from this episode uploaded shortly after our show tonight. But why do you need to see that when you can just tune in right now and see what these great volleyball minds have to share about Langley? And for that, I'll turn it off to our volleyball mind, Monica Moore. Take it away.
Thanks, BJ. Well, this week we've had a little movement in the FSN volleyball rankings because Langley has secured the first place spot after beating Centreville last week. And so, as BJ mentioned, we are lucky enough to be joined by both Coach Shifflett and Megan. And Coach, I'm sure you've heard this question a lot before, but last year you finished the regular season 17-0, and then you were beat by Stonebridge in the Liberty tournament finals, and then in Centreville in the Northern Region tournament finals. How did the way that the season ended last year impact your preparation for this season and the message you communicated to your team coming out?
I think we got a chip on our shoulder this year, especially with Stonebridge. We had beaten them a week earlier, and they came out, and Jill Rectori over at Stonebridge was an excellent coach, and they played a fantastic match to beat us in the district finals. And then, we went on, and in the regionals, we had to meet Centreville, who we had beaten earlier in the season, and then lost to them in a very tough match. So I think we have, again, like I said, a chip on our shoulder, and the kids were fired up. They've talked a lot about it over the season. And, not just for those teams, but just to finish it this year, to win the district and see what we can do and possibly win the region and hopefully go on to states and make some noise.
And Coach, you talk about Centreville and Stonebridge, two teams that are always in our rankings. Centreville is in our rankings. Let's jump right into our rankings and show the folks at home exactly where Langley sits. Monica, Langley right up at the top, no surprise.
Exactly. Langley's right at the top with 6-0 after a big win against West Springfield on Monday night. So Westfield has dropped to the number 2 spot, and Centreville is remaining at number 3. Followed by Chantilly and Herndon. So no further movement in the rankings, but again, Langley has defeated both Centreville and Herndon. So a couple of big wins to start off the season, and then going to be playing Westfield in a couple of days. So we'll see how that match turns out. But back to Coach Shifflett. One great thing about this season is you had a lot of talent returning. You had Lisa Scott returning, Logan Sebastian, and of course Megan. What's it like managing all of that talent on one team?
It's easy. They make me look good. Yeah, it's great. I mean, Logan Sebastian, thin, doesn't look like she can do much, but just pounds the ball. And of course, Lisa has grown so much even in the last year. When she first walked in the gym as a sophomore, you knew she was tall, and you can't teach tall, but she just fell in love with the sport of volleyball and really worked hard and has done so well and has just become an outstanding player. And Megan has been our steady since freshman. She's a great leader, has that great court sense, which like a good quarterback has, field sense, knows where people are on the court. And but between the three of them, and they have great support around them. We have 7 seniors this year. It's been good.
And Megan, for you, I know you've probably been asked this question a lot, but what are some of the positives of having your mother as a coach, and then what are some of the negatives?
Well, I get to talk. I get to talk about the games with her. I get to talk about strategy, all kind of stuff like that. It's definitely harder having her as my coach. I feel like I have to work harder. There's a lot more pressure. I feel like I need to there's a lot more to prove. I don't want people to think that, I was just given my spot on the team. I like to show that I really belong there. But I like it. I like having her as my coach.
Well, Megan, your individual stats this season have been so impressive. I think a 92% serve rate. You're averaging 8 assists per game. I think 72 kills on the season. Is there any weakness at all in your game?
I'm short.
What were you looking to improve on this season, if anything?
Oh, just consistency in general. Just overall, I just wanted to improve as a player, improve as a teammate, just get better. And I have a lot to. I need to get better for in the future when I go to college. I still have a long way to go. So just overall.
All right, so you have some improvements to make, but you guys are pretty solid as a team as well. Let's jump right in to the stats and show you what Langley is all about. Team hitting percentage, Monica, at .210, and you see the serve ratio there. That says a lot about the squad. Of course, there's Megan setting it up as she always does. She's done that for quite a while at Langley High School. I swear I've been watching you play volleyball since you were like 8, probably. It seems like you've been at Langley forever. Okay, and there she is right there, Megan Shifflett, a .330 hitting percentage, and Lisa Scott, take it away.
Oh, well, actually, yeah, Lisa Scott is phenomenal as well, and if you want to go through them.
Okay, Logan Sebastian at 300, and then you see Lisa Scott, 118 kills. It seems like the same names, Coach. Look at those names. I mean, they're really your top leaders, and I know you guys got a lot of depth with the community involvement with volleyball over at Langley and the club scene that you all seem to be involved in. But the same names keep popping up. Talk a little bit about, we talked about dealing with talent and managing talent, but Megan, you can probably attest to this too. You guys always seem to reload no matter what. At Langley, you always got something in the works.
We're blessed. I mean, because we had Meredith Doyle, and she graduated, and Lisa Scott came along. It's nice to have 6-footer, although sometimes I look over at Robinson and Centreville and Westfield, and I feel like they always have, good talent too. But volleyball has been a very popular sport for us, and you work hard, you try and go down the middle school and get a little interest down there, and hope that maybe they'll play some club or some of the house leagues around the area, and get them interested and try to have fun with them. We have camp every year, and we get a lot of kids that come to our team that have come through our camp, and I think our kids are great. I have great kids on my team, and they work really well with the youngsters that come into our camp. I think that helps a lot. It promotes, real positive feelings about the program.
And Coach, looking at this, our top 10, you see Langley at number 1, but then all Concord. And that, as you guys start your Liberty District schedule, how important is it to schedule those Concord, those tougher teams early on? You've already played Herndon, you've already played Centreville, you scrimmaged Chantilly, you will play Westfield soon. How important is that early on in the season to play those top teams?
I think it's important to play them whenever you can play them. You got to see where you stand against the best teams in the area, and what you need to do to work on. And being able to play Centreville, you can watch film now and see, okay, now I know what we have to do in order to get better. So because they're not going to sit around and do nothing. So we got to know what we got to do to get better and keep working on. So when it comes time in the regionals, hopefully we can make some noise.
And conversely, how tough is it to play Stonebridge your last game of the year, and knowing that you focusing on Stonebridge coming up at that last game?
I actually kind of like it because it's close. I mean, now we're not going to see any of the Concord teams now for a month, and Stonebridge will be strong, and so it's good to be able to see them right away, and then hopefully turn around. I think last year our girls kind of thought that we had just beat them, and maybe it was going to be a little easier than it was. But again, Coach Reschwitz, she's going to have her kids ready all the time, and so I think that was a good lesson for them last year. Think? Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that big match against Centreville. And Megan, I understand that 2 days before the game, the team wore red T-shirts to school to try to get the student body interested in coming to the game. How did that idea come about, and how'd that work out for you guys?
Actually, our team loves the movie 300, and the theme for the shirts, we put our years on the front of the shirts, and on the back we said, "Prepare for glory." And it was really inspirational for us. We've had so many opportunities in the past, and there have been so many expectations for us, and we never come through when it's crunch time. And it's finally like this year, especially for me, for the other seniors, it's, this is it. This is our last chance, and we want to do it. we want to take care of things.
Well, speaking of coming through at crunch time, Coach, I know in that Centreville game, Langley won the first 2 games and then lost the next 2. So coming into that 5th and final game, what was your strategy going in? And talk a little bit about how that evolved throughout the game.
Wake up. The 3rd game was atrocious that we played. And, Centreville, Kelly Brugger came out just slamming the ball, and so did Allie Darling. Allie Darling. They were hitting the ball really hard, and our blocking was not sufficient at all. And that was one thing we really need to work on. We need to work on our blocking. There's no doubt about it. And so we adjusted our blocking scheme in that 5th game because they were hitting. Maybe I shouldn't tell what they're doing. I don't want to tell what they're doing. But to where they were hitting, we adjusted our blocking, and I think that helped a lot. We adjusted our defense a little bit, and the rest of it was really the girls. Them pulling it out and making a decision that, yep, it's time to win. And if we watched the film, we were telling you guys today, we were watching the film today before practice, and Megan has a kill towards the second to last point, is just really powerful, and then Lisa just finished it with another. It was a slam, and it was a statement. And I think that was a statement that they made, and hopefully they can keep making that statement through the rest of the year.
All right, a lot left to accomplish for the Langley Saxons, making a couple statements here today. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Godspeed to you throughout the rest of the season. And if you want to find out more about the Langley volleyball team and Monica Moore's weekly reports on the Fairfax Sports Report, our volleyball analyst here, and more, go to fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. When we come back, we're going to talk all about Northern Region football. So you football fans, hang out for just a minute. We're going to talk all about Westfield and Chantilly, a great matchup. Dave Bushenfeld and John Marcario are going to join us to tell us about what they saw on the field. Paul Frummel, he was also there. Look at that smile.
I'm everywhere.
You can tell he was there. And, of course, Gerry Pannoni from Centreville is going to be joining us by phone to talk about his team's good start to the season. Come on back and join us for more here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fairfax Sports Report here on the Fairfax Sports Network. And we're going to get a chance now to talk about football. Of course, everybody's loved football during the fall. I want to thank Coach Shifflett and Megan Shifflett from Langley Volleyball for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Guys, of course, the biggest game of the season happened this week. And it was, of the regular season happened this week for football, and it was Westfield versus Chantilly. Let's jump right into the standings, and we'll give away the result, really, with showing you the records. Of course, Westfield still undefeated now at 4-0. Mike Glennon, an incredible day. We'll get a chance to show you all his stats and figures. Centreville at 3-1. Chantilly drops to 3-1 with the loss to the Bulldogs. That rivalry game heats up. Robinson at 3-1, and they still have not played a district game. They got a chance to go over the bridge there and play Anacostia. Rather, they welcomed Anacostia from the city. And Oakton, of course, at 1-0 now, rebounding with a district win, but 2-2 overall. Herndon struggling off to one of their worst starts in the history of the program. And Fairfax at 0-1 and 1-3 overall. All right, for all you folks tuning in to join us about the Westfield Chantilly game, it was a game that did not disappoint. Guys, if you had to pick one word to describe the game, and Paul, I'm going to start with you. How do you describe the matchup that you saw Westfield Chantilly?
Not just one word, but I'll say it this way.
Okay, your time's up. Dave, how did you know? Okay, go ahead.
6'6" quarterback rushing touchdown. That's how I'll describe it.
Okay, like 5 words. And pretty good. Dave?
He took my answer. I was going to say Mike Glennon.
John?
Impressive.
Impressive. I like that. See, John
he
actually
stuck
follows
to the
directions.
Okay, sorry.
All right, so guys, when you talk about impressive, you talk about what Westfield was able to do in the matchup. Let's jump right into the graphic and show the folks at home exactly what Westfield was able to do, Paul. You see Mike Glennon, his passing stats were what they usually are, but kid also rushed for a couple of yards.
Oh, yeah, it was 5 for 22 passing, 174 yards, 2 touchdown strikes, 1 to David Crutchko, 1 to Johnny Pickett. He also rushed for 50 yards and had that 24-yard touchdown run. Brian Kennedy, the dangerous back for the Bulldogs, rushed 15 times for 106 yards. He had a TD, and I mentioned Johnny Pickett. He caught 9 balls, 102 yards, and had that touchdown.
All right, and, Mike Glennon, obviously, you see his stats, an impressive day. But then, John, you jump right over to the other side, and Austin Decker over at Chantilly, he may have passed for 90 yards, or 99 yards, almost 100, but the kid rushed for almost 100 yards, rather over 100 yards and a touchdown. Not bad day for Austin and the rest of the kids as well over at Chantilly.
No, not a bad day. Decker actually put Chantilly up early with that 64-yard rushing scamper. Also, you see Torn Pace with 9 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown. A nice clip there. They held Antonio's Cross in check, though, with 8 carries for 20 yards. Interesting stats right there for Mr. Cross.
All right, and Dave Bushenfeld, who later in the show you'll see exactly how much he knows about Northern Region football because he's leading the picks poll. You can see that on the website. But, Dave, you said it last week. You said the key to this game would be what Westfield would be able to do against Chantilly's running game, which has been led by Torian Pace and Antonio Cross. And shutting down Cross for 20 yards, I think, tells the story of the game.
Yeah, well, it didn't look good early. I was actually talking to Paul. We were both on the sidelines. And as John said, first play, offensive play of the game for Chantilly. Decker scampered 64 yards up the sideline for a touchdown. Their next touchdown came on a 42-yard run by Torian Pace, and it looked like they were giving up all these big runs in the running game. But after that, they really did a good job of shutting down the trio of backs that they have in there and add Decker into the mix as well. So I was impressed with the way they stepped up on defense.
Now, Pace scored with 8 minutes left in the second quarter. After that, just a field goal. And when I talked to Coach Verbanek and Coach Glennon, they mentioned the offensive Coach Glennon.
He's coaching now as well.
Might as well, be quarterback. No, Coach Verbanek and Mikey Glennon, when I talked to them after the game, they mentioned the offensive line. And that's a huge thing, Coach Keating there at Westfield. And I talked to Coach Keating afterwards as well, and he said, we've gotten some size. And you can see with these yards, Glennon rushing for 50 yards, Brian Kennedy over 100. You can see the offensive line really controlled the Chantilly defensive line, and they held the ball. They had an 8-minute drive, 6-minute drive in that second half. They had 2 drives, and those are long, over 10 plays, 80-yard drives to score those last 2 touchdowns.
Dave, when you look at this team, and you were on the sidelines for Chantilly Osborne last year, and a lot of games as Chantilly really rose through the ranks and made some magic over there really in Chantilly and went all the way to the state final. So you've seen that Chantilly team, and now we've seen what was supposed to be an even better Chantilly team lose to Westfield. So what does that tell us about the rest of the season and what Westfield is actually capable of now, having seen the early part of what could be a Northern Region final rematch?
Well, I don't think there's any question that Westfield is the best team in the region at this point. They're loaded on both sides of the ball. But don't take too much of this away from Chantilly. They were in the game. Glennon scored with, I think, 2 minutes left to put them up by 12. But Chantilly was right there the whole game. Had a lot of penalties. Coach Lally wasn't too happy with that. And 3 of their penalties kept drives alive that directly led to scores for Westfield. So you take away the mistakes, Chantilly could have won that game. I might go out on the limb and say they might even be better than last year's team. They just had a few too many mistakes against Westfield.
At one point, Paul, last year, Chantilly had given up only 7.7 points a game through like the first 4 games. Their defense was incredible and faltered down the stretch, started giving up a lot of points. That's when they got into their Concord District schedule. But they gave up 28 to Westfield, but they have a good defense. So does it say more about Chantilly's defense struggling or more about how good Westfield's offense really is?
Well, you can tell one thing by what I mentioned. Long, sustained drives. It shows that Chantilly's defense doesn't have many cracks. They didn't allow the big play. But it also shows that the Westfield offense is that good that they can get 5 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, 6 yards. And like Dave said, the penalties at the end, penalties pushing the Westfield offense into the red zone is what really hurt Chantilly.
In just a minute, folks, we're going to be joined by Centreville coach Gerry Pannoni. He's going to tell us all about his team's hot start, a couple of shutouts for the Wildcats. So Coach Pannoni joining us in just a minute. But, guys, let's finish breaking down this game. You can also look at Dave Bushenfeld's recap of the Chantilly-Westfield matchup online at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. John, last year, Austin Decker got a chance to fill in for Nate Warwick when he was injured in the playoffs. How do you think that experience helped Austin in a big game like this? The kid, above all, looking at what Torian did and what Antonio did, those guys were also in those big games last year. But Decker at quarterback, respectively, 99 yards passing, 108 rushing, and a touchdown. The kid really answered the bell.
He did answer the bell. Decker's job is a little different than Glennon's job, where he just needs to manage the game. He doesn't need to win the game for him. He doesn't need to put up spectacular numbers. He just needs to do the things to put his team in position to win. I talked to Austin before the game. He said the team was really looking forward to the game. They realized that that game could decide the Concord District, but he's fully aware that that game isn't going to define their season. He said he very well expects that they probably will face Westfield again. So this will not be the last time you hear from Austin Decker and Sean Glenn.
Okay, well, they seem to think they'll be facing each other in the Northern Region Final, but there's a coach on the phone that may have something to say about that. Centreville coach Gerry Pannoni, his team is off to a 3-1 start, was an assistant coach last year, and now takes over the helm, basically flipping the script with Coach Mike Skinner, who has been in the Northern Region since his days at Marshall, where he launched a lot of coaching careers. Coach Gerry Pannoni, are you with us?
Hello, hey, how you doing?
Hey, Coach, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Coach, you're over at Centreville now as a head coach. You were there last year, and you guys are now off to a 3-1 start with a couple of shutouts to start off the season. Would you say that your team is more of a defensive-heavy team, or are you an offensive-heavy team, and what is your philosophy now, being the new coach over with the Wildcats?
Well, right now I believe we are a defensive-heavy team. We've taken our best athletes and put them on the defensive side of the ball, and just trying to stop you from scoring. If we figure if we can stop you from scoring and get better on offense each week, then we got a good shot.
Speaking of that defense, 2 shutouts and only 3 points allowed against T.C. Williams. You've allowed an average of 1 point per game these last 3 games, and we all knew when Mike Skinner took over as that defensive coordinator, when you guys flipped, we knew that was a good choice. But how has Coach Skinner really helped out this team on the defensive end?
Well, he just gets the kids going, playing real hard, puts them in the right spots, and does the right things to get them to be successful, and the kids definitely buy into it and do a great job.
Now, Coach, you play Fairfax this week. How important is it to stay focused for Fairfax and start out 4-1 before the brutal part of your Concord schedule starts?
Well, I mean, right now our goal is, we take each week one at a time. You don't look ahead, and just focus on your opponent at hand, and try and come up with a win somehow each week. And then, as long as you can keep doing that, then you stay focused on what you're doing.
Coach, you mentioned the great athletes you have on your team. Hands down, I think Daryl Hamilton is probably the best one. Talk about what he brings to the team and how he's being utilized in your system this season.
Well, he's probably, on the field, he's probably our coach on the field. He can put the kids in position if they line up incorrectly. He's a 4-year varsity starter, so he has all that game experience. Each time he steps on the field, and he is just a poised athlete, but yet a very, very good athlete.
Daryl Hamilton recovering a blocked punt for a touchdown in the game against Hernan, and P.J. Dunnigan with 2 touchdown passes. Talk a little bit about P.J.
P.J. started, about 5 games at quarterback last year for us. Another very good athlete. Throws the ball real well. Early on in the year, we weren't throwing the ball much at all. In the last few weeks, we've tried to start using our at least our short passing game as more, just like our running game, and it's worked real well for us. He throws the ball real well and manages the game real well.
Now, Coach, you mentioned you weren't throwing the ball much early in the season. You guys lost to Langley to open up the year. What did you tell your team after that game, after the disappointing season you had, to have them on this current 3-game win streak?
Well, the first game of the year against West Potomac, they're a very, very good team. And, actually, the first 3 plays of the game on defense, they score on 2, and then after that, they don't really sniff the end zone. We just told the kids we just got to get better each week, each rep, each day in practice. And if we can accomplish that, we're going to be fine. And so, our goal for the next game was obviously to get better, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And we did a good job with that. I think coming out of our scrimmages, offensively, we weren't a very good team coming out of our scrimmages. But then, in our scrimmages, we played one scrimmage basically without PJ and another one without Andrew Morgan, and they're 2 of our big weapons on offense. And so, we just had to get our timing and get going on offense. And I think we've done a good job of getting better each week.
Coach, you finished last season with a good overall record, struggled a little bit in the district, had some tough losses against the district opponents. sitting at 1-0 in the district right now. How badly does the team want to do well in the district and hopefully make it to the playoffs?
The kids are real hungry, and it's just a matter of hopefully getting off to a good start, and then just building on it each week. But the kids are real hungry. They were real hungry all off season, all summer, all preseason, and they definitely want it. So it's just a matter of us being able to get the job done.
Well, Coach, thanks for getting the job done with us here tonight.
Sure.
Thank you for your insight, and we'll catch up with you later on down the road when you guys are hopefully jumping into the playoffs. We'll be talking to Coach Gerry Pannoni down the road here on the Fairfax Sports Report. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So, a couple of key points to take away from what Coach Gerry Pannoni told us. The kids are hungry, and I think that honestly says the most about Centreville. This is a team that 2 years ago, when Oakton and Westfield made the playoffs and Robinson got in, Centreville was left out with an 8-2 record with Drew Dudzik and Cameron Dose. Basically, it came down to one play, an interception in the end zone made by now Penn State standout Evan Royster. One of the greatest plays I've ever seen. I actually have a blown-up poster of it in my office. Gary Black, picture man of Nova, actually shot that shot. One of the best shots I've actually seen at a high school football game. But I digress. Back from that, guys. They missed it last year as well. And Coach Mike Skinner steps down. Everyone thinks he's leaving football. In fact, there was rumblings that he would be helping Pudge over at Madison help coach the baseball team. And now here he is back on the sidelines coaching the defense, and they're pitching shutouts. And they've got a great 1-2 punch in Coach Gerry Pannoni, who, by the way, the kids may be hungry. He's also hungry. This is a coach that went to Woodson and struggled and left after a year. And here he is now resurrecting his coaching career, if you will, with a great program and off to a great start, guys. I think that the word hungry says a lot, Paul, about the Centreville football program.
Well, when Coach Pannoni first got the job, he held a parent little meeting in the Centreville cafeteria, 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and I was there, and just seeing the plan he had for this team, he had a packet 3 times as big as this, handing out to all the parents schedules for off-season workouts, getting it done before the season started. And they did. He got a great, I talked to him before the season, he got a great turnout for those before school workouts, summer workouts. So this team came to the season ready and, like you said, hungry to get into the playoffs this year.
All right, but our viewers, guys, they're hungry for a little bit more than Concord District football. So, John Marcario, we're going to jump right into the Patriot District standings, where John Marcario, not giving us his madness yet. We'll get that down the road. He's going to give us the madness of the Patriot District standings.
West Potomac sits at the top. They are 4-0 overall, 1-0 in district play. I want to briefly correct myself. I said Centreville lost to Langley to start the season. They actually lost 14-9 to West Potomac, so that's my fault. Sorry, FSN viewers. There we go. In second place, Upstart West Springfield, a surprising 3-1 overall, 1-0 in district play. Their defense has allowed 11.2 points per game over the past 3 games, stepping up big time. Then you have Lake Braddock. They're also 1-0 in district play, 3-0 overall. They soundly beat South County this past week, 31-14. TC Williams there, they are also 1-0, 2-2 overall. Then you have the defending and back-to-back Patriot District champs, Annandale, struggling with 2 consecutive losses. They are 0-1 in district play, but 2-2 overall. Then you have the Young Hayfield squad, 0-1 in district play, 1-3 overall. South County, 0-1 in district play, 1-3 overall. Big game against Lee this week. That could be a season-defining game for them. They're just struggling this season. And then you have Lee, 0-1 overall, 0-1 in district play, 0-4 overall. Do not be fooled by that record. Brutal schedule. It finally ends. I think they're going to get their first win this week against South County.
All right, so when you talk about the Patriot District this year, there's 2 teams that obviously jump out at you. And West Springfield coach Bill Renner and his son, the quarterback, Bryn Renner, were here with us in studio last week. You can see some of that interview on the website in text format at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. But guys, West Springfield and West Potomac in 2 weeks from now are going to be joining up for what was the highest scoring game in the history of the Virginia High School League. And that says a lot about those teams because West Springfield, offensive juggernaut this year. West Potomac, offensive juggernaut this year. You look at Cole Walter, a touchdown machine. He's the quarterback over at West Potomac. Not to mention the 2 running backs that they have there. Josh Wells has a couple touchdowns this year and just around 400 to 500 yards rushing. But you look at Cole Walter, 14 touchdowns already in 4 games and just 6 interceptions. That's a pretty good ratio, guys. But West Springfield, John, it's a team that, just like Centreville, they've got that same kind of hunger.
They do. They have that hunger. They've forced 10 turnovers this season, a defense led by Richard DeMarker. He missed the first game of the season with a concussion against Stonebridge. In the game, they lost 56-36, in which they gave up 42 points in that third quarter. I talked to several players, and they said they kind of got the thoughts in their head after that quarter, said, oh, gosh, here we go again. But West Springfield has a defensive motto this year. It's don't blink. Don't think about the past, only think about the future. And that's what the players are thinking about, that's what the coaches are thinking about, and that's why they've had success so far.
All right, Dave, what's another team in the Patriot District that jumps out at you and says, hey, maybe look at us, we're a team that can contend here?
Well, I saw Lake Braddock in their first game of the season when they lost at Robinson. I didn't think they looked very good, to tell you the truth, but they rolled off 3 straight wins. Hallie's doing great at quarterback for them. I think they could make some noise down the road as well.
All right, speaking of making noise, a young man from Lake Braddock, speaking of the Patriot District, guys, made some noise this week in the matchup against South County. And for that reason, he is our Fairfax Sports Network Athlete of the Week, John Marcario, Keon Robinson.
Mr. Keon Robinson, he's a Lake Braddock senior. The kid plays everything. Against South County, he had 1 catch for a 75-yard touchdown. He also averaged 30.5 yards on kickoff returns, had an interception, took punt returns. He does everything in a staggering number, which is going to pop out at people's eyes. In 3 games this year, he has 5 catches. He's averaging 48 yards of reception.
So he's obviously the deep ball threat, and you can see there he's also averaged 30.5 yards on kickoff returns and recorded 1 interception in the 31-14 win over South County. Lake Braddock, guys, this is a team that a couple of years ago was 0-10. So they took over the Chantilly plot of being 0-10 and then succeeding. And right now, Lake Braddock at 3-1 under Coach Jim Poitras. And when you've got athletes like our Athlete of the Week, Keon Robinson, pretty spectacular start for their season in what has become, I would say, almost as tough as the Concord District. The Patriot District has become a very notable district in the toughness of those schedules. You can read about Keon Robinson at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, where we'll have our Athlete of the Week every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report. If you're just tuning in, I'm your host, BJ Kubarulis, alongside of John Marcario, Dave Bushenfeld, and Paul Frummelt. And we're going to talk more, guys, about, of course, Northern Region football, what we certainly enjoy talking about here on the Fairfax Sports Report. And when you talk about Northern Region football this year, you can't sleep on Madison, of course, living and coming out of that Liberty District, guys. They've had a couple of playoff performances over there. Let's jump in to the Liberty District standings and show the folks at home, Paul. Langley right up at the top. Stonebridge at 3-1.
Well, Langley is there 2-0 in the district, already 2 big district wins. That 1 loss to Chantilly. Woodson's also at 2-0. They are a tough team, great running team for Woodson. They are at 3-1. Madison 1-0, 4-0 on the season. These Warhawks are for real. We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Madison, obviously the #1 team in the Liberty District at 4-0. Paul, and Stonebridge behind them.
Stonebridge right there, 3-1, 1-0. That 1 loss, yes, it was a tough loss, but Stonebridge is definitely going to bounce right back. South Lakes at 0-1, McLean at 0-1. Marshall 0-2, Thomas Jefferson 0-2. Big drop-off there after Stonebridge.
All right, guys, you talk about the Liberty District this year, and you talk about Madison off to a 4-0 start. That's pretty incredible for the Warhawks. All right, in the last 10 years, and Gordon Leib has been the coach at Madison for 10 years. In 10 years, Madison has never had a better start. They've never had an undefeated start through 4 games. They've had 2 3-1 starts, and in those 3-1 starts, they made the playoffs. That was in the middle of the 2000 range, 2002 and 2003, I believe, they made the playoffs. And rather, last year they made the playoffs. So 2 of the 4 times they've made it, they have gotten off to a 3-1 start. So it's a little bit scary to think about what Madison can do when they've gotten off to such an incredible start at 4-0. Paul, you've gotten a chance to talk with Coach Gordon Leib, and they've got to be flying pretty high over there at Madison.
I'm going to give you the bad news, then I'm going to give you the good news. Okay. It makes the bad news doesn't sound as bad. The 4 teams they've played, they are 4-0, but none of those teams have a winning record. Oakton at 2-2, Yorktown at 2-2, Wakefield 1-3, and South Lakes at 1-3. You see, but look at these scores. If you're playing teams that may be less talented than you have to blow them out to show that you are for real, and that is exactly what they did.
But let's leave that up there for a minute, because Oakton is a team that has Dave, beaten Madison year after year. And maybe Oakton's having a bit of a down year, but still, to beat Oakton in that rivalry game says a lot about the start of that season. I believe, Dave, that was a spark to get them on a roll. Yorktown is no slouch. And Wakefield's got a great running back in John Logan. South Lakes, okay, that's a game they should win. But 3 of those 4 games, guys, those are pretty legit wins. People are going to look at those on the surface and say, maybe not the toughest opponent. But I think by the end of the season, we'll see that's a pretty tough schedule.
That's what as I was saying then, yes, those are teams that don't have a winning record, but they are easily beating these teams, and these teams will eventually get better. See, when you look at it right there now, it doesn't seem like they're very good wins, but they are definitely big wins for this Madison squad.
All right, Gordon Lieb's team, Dave, you see there, 128 points, and they're averaging 32 points a game, and they're only giving up 9. Okay, 9 points a game. That says a lot about the Madison Warhawks. Let's talk more, though, about the Liberty District. Langley's a team, Paul, that you say has a great offensive line. Talk a little bit about Langley's line play and what that's been able to help them do this season.
Well, you have, obviously, Will Wilson and Garrett Moore, Marshall Moore's little brother. So those are 2, as I say, the Marshall Moore mold. 2 linemen right out of there. And obviously, the Langley has a great weight room presence. They are definitely in the weight room all the time. They have great offensive line teachings, and they just continue to reload on that line. Even when a Division I athlete leaves, they reload immediately.
Guys, you think about Stonebridge as a team that's usually up at the top of the district standings. But, John, Woodson is a team that has had some success in past years. They've made a couple of playoff they've made the playoffs appearances, okay, a couple of times in the last decade. That's more than a lot of Liberty District teams can say for themselves. What's helping the Woodson Cavaliers off to what's a pretty good start for the program at 3-1, a team that really struggled last year?
It's pretty quite simple. What's helping Woodson so far, it's their running game. It's just been truly spectacular. They're averaging nearly 200-plus yards per game. A little news out of there, though. Jake Sweeney, their star running back, is a little dinged up. Not quite sure when he is coming back. Woodson, you will truly see how good they possibly can be because in 2 weeks, 1-2, they host Westfield. And that, my friends, could be a very interesting game with how very impressive, how
Did
very
you not
good.
learn your lesson?
I didn't. I said it could
Did you
be
not
interesting.
learn your lesson? Are we going to do this again?
Did I say they were going to win?
The last time you said it was going to
never-
be an interesting game. Westfield beat South County 45-6.
By the way, and now you're saying that South County will lose to an 0-14.
Yes.
All right.
Sidetracking.
But no, you're right. I see what you mean, John. It could be an interesting game because of the matchups and because of the fact that Woodson is, like Centreville, a little bit hungry. All right, we're hungry to get into the National District, where Dave Bushenfeld's going to walk us through who's who in the National District. No surprise, it's the Edison Eagles flying to the top.
As they always are, Edison's sitting up there at 3-1 overall, 1-0 in the district. Falls Church and Yorktown are both 2-2 overall. Wakefield is next at 1-3. Mount Vernon and Washington Lee also at 1-3, and Stewart 0-4 down at the bottom.
Quick note there on Edison: they beat Mount Vernon this past week, 48-28. In this decade, they've won 90% of their National District games. They've won 45 of their 50 games. I've talked to most of the coaches in the National District. They feel Edison should be the runaway winner. Their closest challenger usually is Yorktown, but Yorktown's head coach isn't quite as confident in his team this year to beat Edison. It could be another championship year for the Eagles, and they look like they're ready to bounce back from that surprising loss to West Springfield earlier this year.
All right, and the success under Coach Vaughn Lewis continues at Edison, but of course the success under a new quarterback after Sean Lloyd graduated after being the signal caller there for really 3 years. They put their wide receiver at quarterback, and it seems to be going well, only because they've got so many other athletes that can really pick up the slack. An incredible running game over there for Coach Vaughn Lewis's Edison Eagles, and that's why you're going to see them ranked 7th in our Northern Region Top 10 FSN football poll. Let's show the folks at home who sits where in the Northern Region Top 10. The Fairfax Sports Network's Top 10, Week 4. Westfield with 40 points. No surprise, guys. They've been there all season. A unanimous decision between us, the voters, and Chantilly right there, not far behind. A great game, maybe one of the only teams that can contend with Westfield, although I think West Potomac, number 3 West Potomac, could have something to say about that before it all is said and done if they could get a chance to play each other. They're at 33 points, and they are in the same slot as last week at number 3. Paul, you look at West Springfield and Robinson, 2 teams, no surprise, right up in the top half.
Yeah, obviously you have West Springfield Robinson, 27 points for West Springfield. Robinson with 23 points. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So you're missing Stonebridge. They're falling a bit. Stonebridge does fall to 6 with 18 points, but the top 6 in this top 10 poll, relatively the same.
There you see Edison and Madison. They are both there tied for 7th at 9th and 10th. Dave, who do we got?
Lake Braddock sitting in 9th. We were just talking about them. They have 3 wins in a row after that tough loss to Robinson in their opening game. And Centreville remains at 10th place with 3 points.
You should be able to see some shaking up in that FSN top 10 this week as Robinson does play Westfield in a very, for lack of a better word, someone's going to hound me for this, interesting possible game.
No, that
is an interesting game.
That definitely could be an interesting game. Now, Dave, I know exactly what you're going to say, so let me read your mind. Dave's going to say that Robinson's secondary is decimated, that they've lost their entire secondary from last year.
They're just young.
No, actually, I talked to Coach Mark Bendorf at the beginning of the year, and he used the word decimated. So they're decimated. And they lost everybody.
They gave up 340 yards to Anacostia this past week passing.
And they gave up a heck of a lot more than that to West Springfield. So you get arguably the best quarterback in the state of Virginia, and one of the best on the East Coast, headed to NC State and Mike Glennon. The kid's maybe going to throw for about 700 yards this week.
It could happen.
Conservatively.
But then on the flip side of that, you think about Coach Mark Bendorf and what he's able to do against some of these great athletes. You never know what plan they may come out with against Mikey Glennon. So, John, it could be an interesting game. I'll give you that one as an interesting game.
But you guys have been around for a while. You know the northern region.
It's my world, baby. It's my world.
Have you ever counted Robinson out of anything?
Never.
And you can't. You just cannot count the Rams out of anything, so it will be an interesting game.
Absolutely.
Let me
Why
tell
I
you,
picked them against Stonebridge, the only one.
good job. The problem that Robinson could face in that game, though, is they don't really have a quarterback play that can go deep. So if they fall behind early in the game, such as a 14-0 or 21-0 deficit, they're going to have to rely on passing. And they just don't have that quick strike offense. But if they get a turnover like they got against Stonebridge, and all of a sudden they're up 14, 21 points, they got that grind-out running game with Alex Murray and Peter Farrar, they could very well pull off the upset, but they have to be up going into the fourth quarter.
So, of course, now as we get into the Concord District and everybody getting into their district schedule, it's going to be a dogfight every week in the Concord District. And I've talked to several coaches there. Every year it's the same thing, and they use the same word. I think they've got some sort of club where they all use the same word. They call it a meat grinder, and it really is. By the time you get out of the Concord District, you are ready to win a state championship. That's basically what is said and done in the Concord District. That is your regular season schedule preparing you for a state championship game, Dave.
Last 7 seasons, there's been a Concord District team in the state final. They've won, I think, 4 of them. So that tells you that right there.
And they've won 7 out of the last 10 years. So the Concord District representing Fairfax County. All right, guys, let's represent our records. We gotta own up to them. We gotta show what we did wrong this week. And of course, we're talking about our weekly pick'em results. So everybody except Paul Frummelt, I got to call you out, buddy.
Well, no.
We all took the Bulldogs and Lake Braddock right up there at the top. Now, you get 10 seconds to explain why you would take South County against Lake Braddock. Time's up. All right. Annandale. No, go ahead.
No, honestly, I don't have an excuse. I did believe South County was a better team. Annandale showed me I was dead wrong. I still like this South County team, and I'm not going to stop liking it.
You know what? I put a lot of my eggs in the South County basket at the beginning of the year. I was the only one that picked South County to win the Patriot District. Yes. And boy, I'll tell you, I heard about that yesterday from Jimmy Bennett. I got an email that said, "Hey, how about that? How about that West Potomac team? I don't know really much about them. I'm just saying."
But they're still that same team. They've had some hard times. They still have that talent that you saw in the beginning of the year. Yeah. They can still turn it around.
Too many turnovers.
When you got a Bendorf on the bench calling the calls, it certainly helps out. Let's show the folks at home what we're picking this week and how bad we can screw up our picks this week. Of course, all right. Dave Bushenfeld right there. Dave Bushenfeld, sports editor of the Fairfax County Times, with a 6-3 record. He's going to take Langley over Oakton. Dave will also take Lee over South County. And he's going to go with Braddock over T.C. Williams. Always an interesting game. So when you look at Dave's picks, and then you look at BJ's picks, you think, are these guys even reading the same papers or looking at the same stats? Dave, basically, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm just trying to catch you, buddy. I'm just trying to catch you. And you see John there and Paul sharing a 3-6 record. John Marcario bounces back after starting the season at, I believe, 1-5, if I'm correct. So not a bad jump back week for John. John, Langley, Lee, and Braddock.
It's going to be a very fun week of football here in the northern region, I do foresee me jumping over Paul and jumping over BJ. I will not be able to jump over Dave because he copies all my picks from now on because he knows I will beat him in the end.
Right. With the Langley-Oakton game, I could see that one going either way. 2 of my 3 losses so far have been when I picked Oakton, so I am not picking Oakton again the rest of the season. That's it.
Oakton will beat Langley, as Paul and I know, and South County is going to get a bounce back against a lead team that was really hit hard by graduation. T.C. Williams is the only one I'm doubting.
Well, here's, by the way, a little shout out to the Connection newspapers, both 3 and 6. We know our stuff. But no, I believe Oakton again, a team that is 2-2. They're a better team than their record. They should take care of Langley, a very good team in itself. South County, I love those. I love South County. I'm going to stick with them. I think they beat Lee. And then Lake Braddock, I picked against Lake Braddock before. I regretted it, so I will not do it again.
All right, every week, Dave, because you're in the lead, you'll get the final word here on our picks.
Well, this was a very difficult week. I could see all the games going either way. T.C. Williams had a very impressive win over Annandale, 21-3. I really wanted to pick them, but I'm liking the way Lake Braddock is looking. I think that they'll pull that one out. I'm
coming back strong this week, folks, and if you want to see all our picks and what we've picked all year, you can go to the website at www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com, and you can see Dave Bushenfeld obviously running away with it. But I'm going to catch him this week, folks. All right, guys, speaking of catching up with Loudoun, let's catch up with Paul Frummel. Loudoun's his wheelhouse and his world from Sterling to South Riding.
There you
go. Take it away.
All right, guys. Always with the Loudoun Report, I start out with the top 3 Dulles District football teams in the Dulles District. Don't talk about Loudoun County, Loudoun Valley. I don't talk about Stonebridge. I focus on the Dulles District. And at number 1 is Broad Run. They are 3-0, and they are, I believe, are the top team in the Dulles District with that big win over Ballou a couple weeks ago. Parkview, they're the reigning champs. You can't disrespect them. They are 3-0 on the season, so they haven't lost in the Dulles District. And Briar Woods, the new team, first year in the Dulles District, they're 3-0. And folks, a huge game coming up with Broad Run, our number 1 pick, taking on Briar Woods, our number 3 pick, at the Falcons' Nest. It's going to be a great game. Now going to the standings, we said Briar Woods at 3-0, Broad Run at 3-0, Parkview at 3-0, Dominion 1-2, Heritage 2-1, Dominion 1-2, Potomac Falls 1-2, and Freedom 0-3, Loudoun County 0-3. So those are the standings for Dulles District football. District games this week are Broad Run versus Briar Woods. I'm going to take Broad Run in that. Dominion against Freedom. I'm taking Dominion. Loudoun Valley facing Osborne Park. I'm going to take Loudoun Valley. A little love to Loudoun Valley. Those are my 3 picks for the week. And real quick, into volleyball for Loudoun. Loudoun County beat Broad Run 3-1 in volleyball to remain undefeated. They're probably the best team in the state.
All right, guys. Every week here on the Fairfax Sports Report, we have what we call Marcario's Madness, and it's mad. It's serious. It's insane. It's when John Marcario steps up to the plate and takes a couple of swings and tries to hit one out of the park. Last week, he bashed the band. The band learned their lesson. They won't be playing anymore during games and when they're not supposed to be playing. This week, it's all about field hockey. Let's get to the madness.
Field hockey teams deserve to have their own fields. Some schools, such as Oakton and South County Secondary School, have transformed makeshift areas into nice, professional-looking fields. Most schools have teams playing on the outfield grass. Now, I understand that offers nice, plush Bermuda grass, which teams prefer to play on. But a lot of times, these outfield areas are not flat and not even, but rather bumpy. Field hockey players, just like every other sport, practice like every other team. They deserve to have their own field. Field hockey, in fact, is the only high school sport that does not have their own designated area when season is in play. Women's field hockey has grown nationally since the 1980 Moscow Games when it became an Olympic sport. In conclusion, field hockey teams deserve to have their own field when season is in play. It's the right thing to do, and it should happen soon.
All right, so you got John's lead sentence, his opening paragraph, his body, and then his conclusion, just like every research paper I ever wrote in the history of high school. Paul, you had something to say.
I want to, this is strange to say, I want to agree with John. I was just at a Marshall field hockey game, and they play in the outfield of the baseball team. And it's so weird changing, going into the dirt, playing in that tall grass that's just unkempt. It's not, I agree with John completely that it seemed odd that they do not have a designated place to play, or I mean, let them play on on something that's not uneven dirt and grass.
Hopefully what you'll find as Northern Region, most schools now are investing in trying to get turf fields, and of course that's really a football decision, and basically every decision made in the Northern Region is about football. Don't let anyone tell you different. But field hockey at some point could be played on that turf field. I mean, you've got practice. You want practice to be done on the turf field, but games or big games could be done on the turf field. My sister's the head coach at Virginia Wesleyan College for field hockey, big field hockey fanatic, and having talked to her over the years, she would rather play on turf than anything else. Sounds like they would want to play on that field turf stuff that's been out, but no, they'd rather play on the carpet, the old school stuff, because the ball rolls more true. All right, so there's my field hockey knowledge
Sounds like
for
a
you.
call-in guest later.
Absolutely. You can find out more about field hockey in the Northern Region at fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. I got a chance to catch up with Oakton coach Lizzie McManus and Langley coach Jennifer Robb. Oakton coach Lizzie McManus's Cougars are off to a great start this season, and they'll be catching up with Westfield. Always a great matchup. And Jennifer Robb's squad, Langley, just got a chance, Paul, to beat McLean, and that's a game that, as we always say here, no matter what you play with Langley McLean, no matter if it's checkers or chess or baseball or street fighting, or even I don't think they do that in the McLean Great Falls
Not
area.
anymore.
I think they shuffleboard it out over there. But really, I mean, it wasn't close. It wasn't that case. And what was the difference, Paul? You got a little news on field hockey in the Northern Region.
Well, yeah, just to say, great minds think alike. I also talked with Coach Lizzie McManus and talked to Coach Jennifer Robb this week, so we were on the same page here. But when I talked to Coach Jennifer Robb, she did mention, first of all, it was the Rotary Cup. It's huge, Langley McLean. Second of all, it's the beginning of their district schedule. Right now, they are undefeated in their out-of-district schedule that they played, but they start their district schedule with McLean, and then next Tuesday, they have Woodson. Now, a little background on the Langley field hockey team. They lost 4 games last year. 2 games to Westfield, 2 games to Woodson. Didn't get a district title, didn't get a region title, and that kills them. They already beat Westfield twice this year in the same week. They got a little bit of revenge there. Now they're facing Woodson next Tuesday to be a huge, huge game.
Most of the girls that play on Langley's field hockey team also play on Langley's lacrosse team, coached by Richard DeSoma. So 2 good coaches over there. Jennifer Robb's a heck of a coach. She knows what she's doing. She played at McLean, so she understands that rivalry from both angles. You talk a little bit, guys, about field hockey in the Northern Region. It's always Westfield, it's always Oakton, and it's always Langley. Marshall had a great season one year, and you got a chance, Paul, to catch up with Christina Carroll on the girls. What's Marshall's season looking like this year?
They're playing better. They're definitely a team that could make a run. Any of these Liberty District teams and Concord District teams could go far into the Northern Region tournament. Marshall, definitely a team to look out for. Don't get the headlines that maybe Woodson, Langley, Chantilly, and Westfield get, but they're still a tough team.
Guys, looking around the rest of the Northern Region in field hockey, who's a team that maybe everyone's sleeping on?
Well, you talked about Westfield there. They're having a bit of a down year. They're 6-4, but they lost their first district game to Robinson on Monday night. They lost 11 seniors from last year's team that won the Northern Region and advanced to the state tournament. Lost Allie Keon, everybody knows her, had big slap shot. They're just lacking that one really offensive force. Their goalie did a phenomenal job. Nicole Ficara, I believe, she's a junior, made some amazing saves against Robinson, ended up losing that game 2-1. Their defense played as well as they could, but they just are lacking that offensive spark to get it going on the other end.
Anyone else in the region, John, that maybe in the field hockey world isn't getting enough respect, love, or headlines?
Headlines, love, it's kind of an obvious pick, but sometimes they don't get it. Would be Lake Braddock. The Bruins, again, are having a phenomenal season. They only have 1 loss this year. That loss would be to Langley, but aside from that, they beat Woodson in overtime. They're going to more than likely roll through the Patriot District. Watch out for Lake Braddock this year.
Paul, what do you got?
Got to say Oakton. I mean, Oakton, you say, yeah, that's a no-brainer. But they had some tough losses early in the year. They got back on track by beating Madison, another inter-town rivalry game, beating Madison 4-0. So they're a team that are working on getting their shots to count, which it hurt for them a little on earlier in the season.
All right, hopefully we didn't hurt you too bad watching this show here tonight. We had a chance to catch up with 2 of the best volleyball minds in the Northern Region. Susan Shifflett, coach over at Langley, and her daughter, and a setter, and one of the best volleyball players in the Northern Region, Megan Shifflett. I want to thank them for joining us here on the Fairfax Sports Report. We also got a chance to catch up with Centreville coach Gerry Pannoni by phone, and he was very interesting talking about his team's hunger and their mentality going into their Concord district schedule. They'll take on Fairfax this week. The Fairfax Sports Network will be at West Springfield-Annandale game. That's going to be a pretty good matchup, returning two-time Patriot District champion against a resurged Spartan front. Got a chance to catch up with Coach Bill Renner and his son, the quarterback Bryn Renner, and of course Tyler Bittenkurt, certainly someone to watch for over at West Springfield, a great kicker. And the game of the week, Annandale at West Springfield. This week on Channel 10 will be the replay of the September 14th matchup of the Eagles at the home of the Stallions. And guys, John, you and I were at that game. A heck of a game, as should this week's game. We're on the web, and you can get a preview of the West Springfield-Annandale game, Fairfax Sports Network's Game of the Week, on the website, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. I want to thank our teammate, CCI Screen Printing, 703-978-0257. And I want to thank you folks at home for tuning in here on the Fairfax Sports Report, here on the Fairfax Sports Network. For Paul Frummelt, John Marcario, and Dave Bushenfeld, I'm BJ Kubarula saying so long until next week, and we'll bring more football action your way here on the Fairfax Sports Report.